Bigger than a hell rain, things like you heard on the decks. Glover hold the court, give the chief no suspect. Politics in the mix, like Gumbo Stewart Rich. Spinning tales from Black Wall Street, real life's the pitch. Donnie Glover Show, be more news. Donnie Glover Show, be more news.
Welcome to BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth. How you doing, man?
Man, feeling well, man.
What's your name?
My name is Cardi Cornish.
And you're a legend?
I'm a legend.
You're a legend here in Baltimore City. Where we at right now?
We live in the 17 Pennsylvania Avenue. The legendary Pennsylvania Avenue.
Man, the last time I saw you here, you were doing something just across the street here. What were you doing?
Oh yeah, I had some food left over from an event. We brung it out. We fed a couple of people, man.
Why you do that?
Nice soul food.
Why you do that?
Man, the love that God has shown me in Christ, man, it overflows. That's how it overflows.
Yes, sir.
We got more than we can use. We got more than we can handle ourselves. We try to let it flow. Let it go to the next person.
Yeah. We're proud of you, man.
Thank you.
And we're proud of your son.
Thank you.
You're watching BeMoreNews.com, the news before the news, where we uncover the truth.
Business sticks hotter than lava. Got that Midas touch. Stocks and blocks teaching youngins how to clutch. Ears to the concrete, finger on the pulse, dropping wisdom like Hova. Each word a joke. Donnie Glover Show, be more news. 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 Walls painted black, history on lock. Blast off from Tulsa, rebirth like a clock. Markets rising from ashes to days. Donnie the narrator, truth runs in veins. Donnie Glover Show, be more news. Donnie Glover Show, be more news. Donnie Glover Show, be more news. Donnie Glover Show, be more news.
First name's Donnie, last name's Glover, in it to win it for the long haul, baby. I want to start this off with a moment of silence, a moment of prayer. May the ancestors, may the good Lord bless this show that we can touch somebody and enlighten somebody. Amen, Ashe. All right. Where do we start? We have with us, well, let's start with the queen. Come on, introduce yourself.
Okay, well, now I'm Renee Sanders, also go by Red Silver Fox Thunderbird. I am co-founder of Indigenous Education with my son there next to me on screen, Tavis Sanders of Indigenous Education.
Good deal.
Yo, what's up? Oh, did Don freeze?
No, tell us who you are.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Again, my mom is a very modest individual, but my mother and I are co-founders of Indigenous Education, a nonprofit established to educate the public of the omitted history of brown and dark-skinned indigenous peoples of the Americas, particularly from the southeastern portions of the United States. We've been doing this. We co-founded the organization in 2010. Started doing things like community cleanups and free workshops at libraries and community centers in the neighborhoods, and started trying to figure out other ways to get this on into the public. And so I think in 2011 we did our first television show, and then we threw that on YouTube. This was before YouTube was monetized or anything like that. And so, we've been producing educational content, free workshops, cleanups in the neighborhoods in Philadelphia for the last 16 years. And right now we're running a summer program, a 10-week summer program that's offering youth stipends for their participation. We're about to wrap that up before school starts, and we'll keep on moving forward with the projects from there.
Okay. And Mr. Davis?
All right. I'm Clarence Davis. Most folks will call me Tiger Davis. I was born in Wilkes County, Georgia, on an old plantation, and my family had moved to Florida. And in 1947, my parents dropped us off with my grandparents and great grandparents in Georgia, and they came to Baltimore. So this is how I got to Baltimore. They came back to get us the next year in 1948. And I've lived in Baltimore since that time. And of course, I'm a military veteran, the whole thing, because, you know, when you come out of a Southern culture, you know, the military is always something that's very close to you. And most of us did become veterans. And I spent 24 years in the Maryland House of Delegates. So I was an honest crook for 24 years, right? But the people continually elected me every 4 years for 6 terms, right? They elected me. And that's my pension. But beyond that, I was also a professor of history at Morgan State University. But I think most people will know me and generally look upon me as being a Black revolutionary from the 60s or what have you. Nothing has ever really changed. And it's just that I've had to change how I do things because as you grow older, you figure out what your niche is and how you best go about something. This is why when I heard you all talk about what you all are doing, that is beautiful. I've been trying to get to that for the longest time, to where you are right now, because we need to get the truth out to our people about everything. You know, not just when I say our people, Native Americans or Blacks or Browns or what have you, but the entire nation needs to know the truth. And if you and I don't bring forth the truth, it will not be told. And you've got I won't call him an idiot because he's sharp and know what he's doing, because he pimped the hell out of America in the White House right now. Mm-hmm. He's trying to turn all that around and making DEI a criminal offense or what have you.
So let me just jump in there, because I don't want you to go too far.
That's me.
Right. We got the introductions.
Okay.
Down. We have been posing this question over the past week. Who are we? And let me just say, we've gotten a wide variety of answers, and how it turned political one particular night, I don't know, but we do apologize for any misunderstandings. I certainly wasn't trying to offend anyone, and I certainly will not let anyone offend me. But in a healthy family environment, I feel like you are family to me. You all have poured into our work here and have helped illuminate. I mean, Tiger has helped me with actually this book. He taught me about James Forten up in your city in Philadelphia. A lot of us don't know about James Forten, but he was a free man. He was Black, and he was
Native American too.
Native American.
Yep.
The equivalent of a millionaire in today's language. So I wanted to bring you in because we first started these Indigenous conversations with you, Renee, Miss Renee, and with Tad. And you know, after the past couple of days and some misunderstandings flying, the broader yellow journalism question I kind of spun in there was, are we Hebrew? Are we Indigenous? Are we Moors? Are we all three? Are we something else? And so I pose that to you, family. Who are we?
Who want to go first?
I was just going to say, it depends on who you're talking to. Number one.
My answer was going to be the same. You are what you say you are, but you better make sure you know who you are. And only way to know who you are is to do your family tree, and it's period. If we allow the textbooks to share who we are, then we are allowing our colonizing the colonizing agent and that system to dictate who we are. If we allow others that look like us to tell us who we are, then we're allowing them to dictate what our past is and what our opportunities can be in the future. And so, we, of course, Indigenous education, we definitely are interested in sharing the omitted history of this collective group from light skin to the darkest of brown, and what that history means to this nation, generally speaking. It would be incorrect for me to tell anyone else that they are white, black, indigenous, Moor, Hebrew. My question would be, well, who are you, or who do you think you are right now? And is there anything that you may want to question about who you are? And how could our organization answer some of those questions, recognizing that we don't know the whole story of America based off of just general education?
Excellent, excellent response. And let me just add to that. This was one of the things they stressed to us during my years in college after I returned home from the military. You are who you say you are, because from the beginning of time, there's been miscegenation, there's been conquests, where master conquers, then the warriors have to flee, and then the conquerors impregnate all the women or what have you. So you get a new generation of people. And so my family is one that's very much mixed like that. Some of my family, you can look at them right now and you say, hey, they Native American. I mean, they their facial features and everything, Native American. And then you have others who have the African look. Then you have some who look white. I got some folks in my family that's white, they're white folks. And so it's who you say you are and who you identify with, but before you can define who you are, you need to know who you are. And that's up to each individual to find out who they are and who they want to be, because that is important. Who do you want to be? I want to be an African American. I choose to be an African American, and I will do whatever is necessary to carry out the mission of what being an African American is, at least my perception of that, because some people have a different perception of African Americans. And I'm going to wrap what I'm saying up so that we can allow some other folks to talk. Look, African Americans built America. And I ain't talking about no slavery. If you're talking about science and technology, from Benjamin Banneker to George Washington Carver, and in between with all the other great scientists who worked with Thomas Edison or Alexander Graham Bell, we built STEM in this country. Okay. And then if you look at the defense of the country, even when we did things we didn't like doing, and we'll talk about that a little later on, we defended this nation. We were the key to the westward expansion. And I have some issues with that as well. Okay. But we've always been in the forefront of defending this nation. And then whatever we did was always denied and wiped out of the books, like Trump is trying to do right now. So if we look at the culture of this country, everything about this culture, this country came from us. I don't care whether you're talking about country and Western music, or whether you're talking about rock and roll, whether you're talking about Fred Astaire stealing Bill Bojangles Robinson's moves and all of that. The culture, even the bad part of our culture, with the guys wearing the pants all down their butt. You see the white boys doing that now, right? The DAP. We're getting ready to do a documentary. Someone called me last week to do a documentary on the DAP. Okay. I may have my thing may okay, there we go. About the DAP. And you know, which means dignity and pride. That's what the brothers slap hands and go through all the handshakes in Vietnam. Everybody done picked that up now. It got into sports and now all the white boys doing it. So the culture of this country, I don't care how you look at it, it came from African people, okay?
Let me pass the ball.
Yes, I would like.
Let me just wrap it up, okay?
You can't. You don't have the ability. You got so much to say.
Now I just got one other last little point to make.
Yeah, I have comments to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now go ahead and finish your point.
Okay, the last point is that when you talk about a democracy, this would not be a democracy if Black people were not fighting for everybody to have equal rights. You know, so it's a democracy because we made it one. And I'm gonna end right there. I could go on, but I'm gonna end it right there. You know.
Okay, well, I was going to say that I agree with everything that you said, except for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that you framed it as African American. Now, if you said Black people, then I will totally agree with every single thing that you said. And the thing is, and the thing is this, is that I'm not denying the African component of this, okay? Because I have African in me also.
Okay.
However, when the Europeans got here, they arrived at a land of Black people that were already here for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
So when they did start bringing over Africans to this, with the slave trade, only from the late 1600s, early 1700s, all the way to the late 1800s when they weren't supposed to be bringing it in, only 300,000 Africans were brought to the shores of the United States. Mm-hmm. So now we ended up with 4 million slaves. The Africans that were brought over, almost 70% of the cargo was male. Only 14% was female. Females, after a long ride in a cargo, for a long ride, they would have to acclimate. They would not be able to bear children for a very long time. The men, when they got here, they arrived to melanated females that were here, that had been here. So again, I agree with everything that you said, except the African American part. I agree that they were Blacks, and we have been here for tens of thousands of years.
And I agree with you. I agree with you. I don't know. I've been speaking so much, and I use the term African Americans, but usually I say African people. That's what I normally say, okay? But or Black people or what have you. But I agree with you. You're absolutely correct, and I appreciate you for bringing that up. Yeah.
All right. I would, if you don't mind me jumping in here, and also, recognize that what we're talking about doesn't have anything to do with politics or religion right now. Mm-hmm. And, recognizing that when we remove the category, right, when we remove the different terms used to identify this group that we're talking about and just speak to it from a melanated perspective, we recognize that the part that they left out of history, which is that the East Coast was a heavily melanated community before they got here, and that they integrated a small portion of Africans that came to the United States into that already, so now called colored, heavily melanated, but now it's called colored population. And you have, these two communities combining into one, but only one of the stories being shared, only the African story being shared in our history books. so that, and then the Native American aspect of who we are is considered a myth. And after hundreds of years of them consistently telling us that this is a myth, we run into today's times where we have to not only present the facts, but also tread lightly with our words and make sure that we offer opportunities for people to share their opinion, while we try to share the facts. And I think that might have been some of the issues, because as some people grab on to this information and run with it, they allow their opinions and their feelings about things to control the narrative, so that we don't acknowledge the respect that we should share with not just our African brothers and sisters, but also our so-called Latino brothers and sisters, and other indigenous communities that were here in the United States along with us. I think, and that's another part that people forget, that with respects to people that acknowledge themselves as a darker skinned indigenous individual, they sometimes forget and not pay attention to the larger aspect of American history, which states that there were many different cultures here in the Americas when the European got here, and that divide and conquer has really worked well against those collective indigenous communities, including ours.
Now look, here's a cousin on my generation. When she looks as Native American as any Native American. That is my great grandson with her. If you look at them, you can see that DNA is still there. Okay, but the only major difference is that she still has that Native American. Okay, I think I'm getting some of the reflection from the
picture's dead. It went away. The picture went away.
The picture one. Oh, okay, yeah. Let me
listen, on screen we got a picture of Lucia, and Lucia is 11,700 years old from my research. Renee, Tavis, have you found this in your research?
Yes. She was found over in the Caribbean by the Yucatan, and she was found with several of the skulls, and they dated them the oldest skulls that they have found in the Americas. And it's interesting, the article that they wrote up, because I use it in one of my PowerPoints that I do, where in the article they mention that that seeing her and looking at her and figuring out her characteristics, they're saying that they know that she came from Southern Asia as opposed to Northern Asia.
Now, see, it was my understanding she came from that she was African.
Let my mom finish sharing. Go ahead, finish sharing. He'll get it.
Yes, and the thing is, again, that if you look at the people who are from Southern Asia, we're talking about Melanesia. We're talking about the
Philippines.
They're Black people. And so again, the article was stating, and seeing, this is one thing that we always say, that there's a lot of times when we're figuring out this information, we have to decode things, and they put them in terminology so that you just kind of skim by it and don't think anything of it, because again, we'll see the terminology Asian, and we don't think of Black people when we hear the term Asian.
Mm-hmm.
However, again, and that's what the article was saying, is saying that these people, they probably came from Southern Asia as opposed to Northern Asia. And again, if you looked at the people, Southern Asians are black, Northern Asians look like Chinese people. So, but again, if you don't just go a little bit further in the research, you won't know that. And again, in just reading the article, you wouldn't get that idea unless you really, really think about it, go back and do a little bit more research.
Let me add to that, because she's absolutely correct. If you look at India was a black nation. Mm-hmm. The Indo-Europeans, or the Aryans, as they are called, conquered in the northern India. And this is when you brought all that racism and stuff into India. If you look at the Indians, the further south you go, they are black people. Most Indians will look blacker than black folks. I mean, they are shown enough black, and it's shiny black. And if you ask Indians about that, they were first denied or act as if they didn't know, and then they'll finally tell you, yes, they were black people, okay? Mm-hmm. But when the Indo-Europeans came in and conquered, and that's who these people were. They was warlike people all the time, warmongers. They conquered Northern, and through miscegenation or what have you, people began to lighten up in Northern India. But Indians are black. And the further south you get to those islands, like my sister was saying, these are black people. Mm-hmm. Even if you go to Vietnam and you look at the Cambodia, hey, look, hey, they show enough sisters. I'm going to tell you honest God truth. Throughout all of them, you look at the islands out there, they're all populated by black people. Okay, but see, because we're so hung up on the Europeans' version of history, we never question things, and it's right there before us, but we don't see it. Mm-hmm. Right before us, we don't see it.
I got something for you on that note. Does anyone know about the mound pyramids across North
Mississippi
America?
And all over Mississippi? Yeah.
Oh yes, I even found that in Louisiana, and it's on the campus of I forget which campus it is, but they are two mounds. That one is 11,000 years old, and the other one is like 8,500 years old. So they're older than Watson Brake. And usually they say Watson Brake is like the oldest, one of the oldest places where, where pyramids were found in Louisiana. But that is also in Louisiana. But again, 11,000, and it's right on the school campus.
Xavier?
No,
LSU?
no. It may be LSU. It may be.
We'll make sure that we email you that, so that
you said
the whole article.
500 years old.
The pyramid is 11,000 years old.
Oh my goodness!
And it's a good thing that they didn't tear it down, because and people walk by the campus all the it's on the campus, so they walk by it all the time.
Yeah, people lay on it.
It's quite humongous to try to tear it down. From what I've seen.
They tore down a lot of humongous mounds. So, they don't have a problem tearing down a mound.
Tiger, over on Patterson Park in Collington, is that a mound pyramid?
I'm not sure.
Right off North Avenue, about 5 blocks below North Avenue on Patterson Park, there's a little park there.
You mean Collington Square?
Yes.
Yeah, well, Collington Square, that's where they used to kill the hogs and stuff, man. I don't know anything about a history of it being the mound or what have you, but I do know that was where they slaughtered the hogs and stuff. But my sister and brother here are really forcing us to face up to some truths. You know, I haven't had this kind
Well,
of
Tiger Patterson.
conversation for a long time. But this is like taking me back to when we would like call radicals on the campuses or what have you.
Tiger Patterson Park is a mound pyramid.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Do you know what a mound pyramid is, Tiger?
Yeah. If you're talking about those natural mounds,
No,
or
they're
you're
not.
talking about mounds that people construct. Okay, because if you
Renee
talk about the
Tavis,
natural mounds that come out of Mississippi and Louisiana, that area, that's why we call them mound Indians. At least that's how we generally would refer to them. I'm not sure what you were getting at up there. You'd have to just.
So let's listen in.
Well,
Okay.
mounds, yeah, I was going to say mounds are all they're all over the place. So they are not just down in the southeast.
Mm-hmm.
They have there are some that are west of the Mississippi River. There are some that are up north, as you know, up here. Many of them, many of them, especially east of the Mississippi River, many of them got destroyed. Mm-hmm. Many of them got used for road highway material and just destroying really the history of it. They were robbing the graves and taking things out and using stuff as shooting practice and everything. And there wasn't anything about preserving anything about Native Americans. And again, because if they did, they would be exposing our history. And again, they're trying to destroy as much of it as they can because they don't want to leave any remnants around. You know, so
if I could jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So if I could jump in, not just like, so mounds are pyramidal structures built from dirt by indigenous communities all around the world, but particularly here in North America, it seemed to be a very, very, very extensive and large building here, particularly east of the Mississippi. So we have shell mounds that would reside in the Georgia, coastal, South Carolina, coast, Florida, coastal area. And then we have other mounds such as this mound. Is this Berry Mound, Mother?
No, that's Monk's Mound.
Okay, Monk's Mound. And
just for the history of it, the perimeter of that mound is larger than the largest pyramid of Giza. And this is the tallest mound. It's the second tallest mound in North America, and it's the tallest mound in the United States, and it's over 100 feet high. And the only one that is taller than that is in Mexico, and that's called La Venta. And so that's the only one that's taller. Yes.
I understand why Doni mentioned Collington Square. Now, this looks like Collington Square, or what we call Sheep Hill, right? Yeah, it looked exactly like the place you was talking about, Collington Square. That's what it looked like before they put that school there.
Wow.
Mm.
Yes,
wow.
It did. Look, I thought I was looking at Collington Square.
Wow.
You're too young to know that, Doni, but that's what it used to look like, man.
Yeah, and what they would do,
located in Illinois. Go ahead, Tav.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, as a part of what my mother was describing as far as the destruction and then the use of these structures, such as what you're looking at now, and another one they used to be called Big Mound, that they would use to build the railroads and the highways that we are driving on today. Another thing that was interesting about this part that really matters to melanated individuals of the United States particularly, is that they would pay the colonists to not just destroy the mounds, but also destroy the artifacts and the bones that would be in the burial mounds, because sometimes we would build stuff like this and bury our dead. and keep building it higher and higher. And so for instance, in Georgia, we have the Etowah Mound Complex, and they rebuilt some of that. What's really interesting is they didn't destroy all of the artifacts that were in those mounds. And so you can go down into the Etowah Museum in Etowah, Georgia. You could look at the artifacts that they found, and you could see individuals that would look like myself and Doni, but you also see individuals that look like the colored population of the United States today. And so if we had access to artifacts of from the people that inhabited the lands that we are on right now, and those artifacts look just like us, what does that mean, and what opportunities open up to us if the history that my mom and I are sharing actually fits your genealogy? And so for us, the question is recognizing that only 250,000 Africans came directly to the United States. And African slavery ended in the United States in 1810. Native American slavery, or as they called it, domestic slavery, didn't end until the 1860s. But African slavery had ended 50, 60 years prior. And so when you consider those things, you consider that they only brought 300,000 Africans here total, but the total population of slaves when slavery, including domestic slavery, ended was over 4 million. Then the question of who we are actually has more meaning, because now we need to look at history and not just how we feel, not just the identifying terms that we use today, but what does the story of our ancestors say about who we were, what happened to us, what is not being told about who we were, and what opportunities we have when we acknowledge who we were versus who we are told we are. And so the larger purpose of our organization is to find individuals and to be part of communications and conversations such as this, where capacitated individuals can hear that question and really consider that as a part of what we can do for our communities moving forward. That's Etowah right there.
Yes, we recognize it.
We've been to a few of them. But yeah, that's Etowah right there. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the big one. So they didn't rebuild that one.
And that one, no, you know what, Ali? I think that's that's not the tallest. I don't think that's the tallest. Remember, because the tall one was a 2-tier. Remember? Yeah. So I think that's the second one, the one that they did destroy. That's what it looks like.
Yeah. And so some of them they destroyed and then they rebuilt it. And that particular one that we're looking at is one that was rebuilt. But they do share that history as a part of the museum location.
And that's where they got the artifacts. They got it out of that mound.
And the artifacts look like you, Mr. Tiger, and you, Mr. Don.
So is it possible that we share lineage?
Oh boy.
No question about it. No question about it. I mean, my great grandmother, although I've never sought to embellish her history as a Native American, okay, because I've always been grounded in this African thing, right? But I know who my great grandmother was now, okay? Make no mistake about it. But by choice, I chose to fight what I call the Black Revolution as opposed to a People's Revolution, because look, my family is heavily Native American, and some are even white.
Can I jump in one more time here? And can I say that was on purpose.
Mhm.
The system placed us in that position on purpose because while my mother and I have been doing this, I definitely would have to say thank you to my mother, because while we can have a reasonable conversation with you two, when we first started, we were, man, apples and bananas and tomatoes being thrown at us by professors at universities, because the system was like for so many hundreds of years, if you were melanated, then you were a slave, and in this country, if you were slave, then you African, and they put that into law. And so whether it's true or not, if the law says that if you're black, you're African, then my mother and I, whether we, even if we know our genealogy, are not able to acknowledge that. And we're not able to live that. And so we had to fit in to the only community that would accept us, which was the black community. The white community, sure enough, not going to accept us. The Native American community has been taught, just like us, to be color infected, right? So that if a person is a certain hue or a certain color, then they're lesser than or they're more than. And so melanated individuals have to fight that stigma inside of the Native American community, which we can't blame them because they're taught, just like we're taught by the same people that want us to hate them because they don't look like us. And so my point is to say that the system set it up so that we couldn't be anything except black, and black was the only way for us to advance our humanity as a people, because black was so welcoming to all of us, no matter where you came from, if you were melanated or if you were if you cared about the cause of equality for this collective group of people. And what I'm saying today is that it's time for us to expand that viewpoint and recognize that we have to fight with both of our hands, not just one hand.
Let me pose this out there. Tiger, have you ever heard of the Dawes Commission?
Yes. Yes, the Dawes Commission. Well, I used to have to teach that in school. But look, before we get to the Dawes Commission, let me just highlight some of the things my brother was just talking about with regards to how they relegate people of color to a certain category. In Mississippi, all the immigrants from Italy and Sicily was coming into Mississippi. The Mississippians thought they were importing people who would be slaves or who would do the work. Those people came with money and they started saving money, and then they started building vineyards or owning vineyards. The legislators in Mississippi entertained legislation to declare Italians as black folks, as niggers, is what they said then, as colored people, right? So that they would have to have the same status as being the status of that they had black people trapped in. Okay, that's how they think. Which goes to show you something else about what Italians look like back then, right?
Very swarthy, as they say.
That's the word, swarthy.
Yes, indeed. And so whenever, a lot of this history we're talking about now, that's what we used to talk about in school all the time.
Well, let's talk about this shaming that happens and how we can reverse this shaming. If I say that I have Latino roots, then I can't say that around some black people because black people want to, why you want to be anything but black? Or if you say you have indigenous roots, then they're black
probably
people.
Why I never promote my Native American heritage, but you can see it. The picture I showed you, she's the oldest of my cousins on my generation, man. Our our parents were first cousins. So
So let's talk about that shaman, Renee. Help me out. Have you ever experienced that? I mean, Tavis alluded to
Uh,
it earlier.
all my life.
but then the Dawes Commission now, look, they would go bring you into school to assimilate you into society, right? And of course, they didn't have to do that with us because we fought to be assimilated into the society. And when I say us, I'm talking about black people now. But the Indians, they had to pass a law, the Dawes Act, to require that Native Americans be assimilated. So they provided education, training.
Tiger, I want to get to another aspect of this Dawes Commission. The Dawes Commission would look at the four of us. This is my understanding, Renee. And they would say, okay, Renee, you are Native American. Doni, you are Native American. Tiger, you African, and Tavis, you're African. Is that correct, Renee? The five
Yes, they would do that.
5 white guys would sit behind the table, and based on their interpretation of your looks, they would if you are Choctaw Creek or what have you, they not only reclassified you, and that's what we get into, Tiger. They not only reclassified you, you're now disconnected from any land that you would have inherited.
Well, with the with what they did is that they labeled them a freedman, and if you were a freedman and still considered a member of the tribe, you got less land than the rest of the members got.
So up until now, we thought the term freedman was a good thing, but actually freedman in many cases was a robbed man, a stuck-up man.
Yeah, and it was actually a category that didn't fit most of the people they gave it to, because to be a freedman would mean that you were not free at some time before now, right? And I mean, it would mean that you were enslaved, and so a slave doesn't have status, and that's been a lot of the issues with the freedmen being seen as citizens of various Native American nations, because slaves don't have status. And so
now tell me about the $5 Indians. Who are they, for those who don't know?
that's the group of people that bought their status for $5 from the Dawes Commission and a few other commissions that were established. And the fact, so we don't like to call people that. However, the reality of fact is that Europeans were allowed to buy Native American status for $5 and be put on a roll, and the descendants of those individuals are still able to be identified as Native American today.
Well, they got 160 acres of land.
Yeah, they got a lot of stuff.
Native American. So what they did, they destroyed the communal ownership of the land, and under the Dawes Act, and then they separated the land, and certain people got 160 acres of land, the head of households, and all of that. They just completely destroyed the culture. And
we want to take a moment.
About assimilation, there was more than just allowing people to participate in society. I mean, that Dawes Act was total, for the purpose of total destruction of the Native American culture, history, that whole everything.
Genocide.
Yeah.
Renee, let's just take a moment and thank you for keeping this alive. When I was a little kid, I was watching cowboy and Indian movies. Innately, I was rooting for the Indians.
Yeah, just like I rooted for Tarzan.
As I got older, I found myself more and more attracted to Native American culture. And then somewhere as a young teen, I remember my dad saying to me how his grandmother was a Blackfoot. He didn't say much about her, but he did say she could carry a bucket of water on her head and one in each hand and never spill a drop. Well, I've just felt this calling all along. And the more I've dug, the more I've found, including YouTube. And it's been some years. How many years have we been doing these shows?
Yeah, quite a few years. Yeah, it was before COVID. When you had that website.
I'm really grateful that to be on the show. It's kind of like taking me back 50-something years to when I was a young student, and we would have these arguments and debates on the all over the campus. I mean, this is all we did, you know, and somehow that has been lost. And so just being on the show with you two, you know, you're forcing me to re-examine who I have become.
And a lot of us also don't understand the influence, not just of the British on us in North America. Yes, we speak English because of the British. We have quite heavily missed the influence of the Spanish and the French, particularly in places like La Florida. Before there was Florida, and Florida was not an original colony, there was La Florida. And as it was exposed on the show, it extended from the East Coast all the way over to Texas. And then you think of the Louisiana Purchase. When the U.S. bought Louisiana from the French, it extended this country another 2/3. But in this whole process, and this is one thing I really want to get to you, Tiger. This is something you have expertise on. Share with us some of the knowledge, because you alluded to this when you first came in, about the Native American and the Buffalo Soldier.
Well, I'm going to start this way. In 1970, and
they're your people, Tavis.
yeah, in 1970, I met Dennis Banks and Russell Means. I was couched in the history of the Buffalo Soldiers. Russell Means and I had a good friendship, which was damaged or strained by my support or embellishment of the Buffalo Soldiers. He viewed the Buffalo Soldiers as being an integral part of the genocide of the Native Americans. Mm-hmm. And I argued against that. Okay. So later on, I realized that, hey, whether we try to paint ourselves as being humane soldiers or whatever, we were integral to the westward expansion of this country and the control and conquest of the Europeans. And there ain't no way to say that other than that. You know, whether we were kind or more humane toward Native Americans than the Europeans, because, you know, the Europeans wouldn't waste bullets on babies and women. They would just simply bash their heads in with the butt of the rifle or something, right?
So you understand that if them Buffalo Soldiers got caught by them natives and got their wigs split, there's an indigenous perspective, almost the majority on this show, that would be like, you shouldn't have been trying to take that land.
Well, this is what Russell means. This is what we had that falling out about. And it wasn't really a falling out. We just drifted apart because of that. See, all of us got money from the Episcopal Church back in 68, 69, and 70. We call it blood money. You know, after the assassination of Martin Luther King, the Episcopal Church put together $10 million General Convention programs monies. We all got grants from that. I had a $70,000 coming out of college with a $70,000 grant to do community development up in Harford County. And, you know, what really was taking place, if we look back, they were buying us, because after Martin Luther King's assassination, there was no way for them to control us. And so they threw money out there in all them different ways. Jesse Jackson went one way. He left SCLC. He grabbed that pot of gold. Somebody else went another way. And they left a poor little Abernathy down there with no troops or no brain power to run SCLC. That's how they split the movement thing, you know. And I was part of that, and I didn't see it because I thought I was hip and academically astute because I done wrote this grant and got a $70,000 grant to a Smith development project. All I was doing was writing a grant to destroy my people and to redirect me from being a serious warrior to one that was bought and controlled or owned by master. And
that's what
Russell Means saw that. He understood it clearly. He tried to articulate it. People like Tiarina. I remember my boy Santiago down there. Tiarina, you know, they still claim that land out there that you know, New Mexico and all that land. Now they still claim it. They had kidnapped the judge and took him up into the mountains. Okay. They too were part of that General Convention of Special Program. And, you know, we were coming in contact. That's when I first got in contact with what the Latinos was fighting about or the Latin people from Mexico, what they were fighting about, and then what the Native American, Dennis Banks and Russell Means was fighting about. I never really understood the full picture of the Sioux because I had not been properly educated.
So what do you understand now?
Program.
What do you understand now?
Hey, man, I'm going to do some thinking before I step out there.
Well, one thing I've learned, particularly over the past week, is some grace and some humility and some respect. And this has been nothing but love. But not all family members can have this civil conversation, big sister Renee.
Well, listen, you all are waking me up.
Hold up tight. I got to slow you down. Let the lady get something in.
You know, I was just going to say that for all the things that you were just saying, that is why my son and I do what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, it's about educating the people. And again, it's about letting people know this history that was left out. So then you can go find out who you are, you know, and you can't know until you can't know where you're going until you know where you've been.
And so, I would say, I would say that's why it's really important for me to study, right? To have the opportunity to study underneath my mother and to continue that studies, because there's wisdom that comes with time and experience. And it's also very, very important for me to be the best that I can, to also recognize and acknowledge the experiences and the wisdom that you just shared with us when it comes to how easily we can become distracted, you know, particularly when resources are thrown into our hands because we've existed so long without. And so I would say to all of the young men, particularly, you know, and my age and younger, for us to pay attention to our elders and pay attention to the stories and, you know, recognize that we are just as susceptible as the last generation was. And unless we respect, acknowledge, and learn from those experiences so that those divisions cannot come in between us. And so that's really why it's important for me to acknowledge the elders. I feel like Indigenous communities has that as a part of their tradition, and because we've been disconnected, Black people generally speaking in America, no matter how you identify, we've been disconnected from that intergenerational shared learning. That it's time for us to start that up again. Right? If we don't do it, then the next generation is just going to be going through the same thing. And so thank you for sharing that, Mr. Tiger.
Renee, I commend you again for stepping out there. And this is what I really wanted people to catch the other night when the conversation went south. It's okay not to know everything. This is the first time this guy right here to my right, this guy here. This is the first time I've heard him learn something. Normally, he just told you he's a history professor. It's okay not to know something.
And we can all learn from each other, and that's really what we should be doing. You know, we all have a story, you know, and our families have a story, you know, so and it is our job to find out what those stories are so that we can pass them on to the next generation. But we can't pass them if we close our ears off and we don't want to listen and be willing to share and willing to learn.
Who is Annette Marie?
That's actually one of our board members, and definitely one of our biggest supporters. We definitely appreciate you, Miss Annette.
You better shout out your board member, man. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, she's been in the chat.
Yes.
I can't begin to express how important you all are, because I'm sitting here and I'm beginning to question who I am or who I have become, you know, simply because I remember when I was once discussing things in the same manner and using the same techniques that you're using to or approach to history. And somehow that has gotten lost. While I still may view myself as a black man, now I got to question it once again. And so I have grown a little bit tonight. And, you know, I'll be 83 next month, right? But hell, I have grown, even though I may have gone back. You know,
it's okay.
I have grown. Thank you.
Ain't that what our grandmothers taught us to read? Our grandmothers read the newspaper, didn't they?
Yes,
Every day.
Always reading, whether it was good, bad, what have you, but at least stimulating this thing here. It's okay not to know it all, and it's okay to be wrong, but just keep that respect there, especially to your elders.
Right. If
just
we
respect,
don't,
period. Not this, just respect
everybody.
Period. Yes.
But especially to the elders.
Yeah, it's the
because I'm where Tiger from. I don't know how they do in Philly, but I know where Tiger come from. A child a child speak as a child. Stay in a child's place. Now you got children calling.
Our grandparents, great grandparents taught us better. They taught us in a way that would protect us, but they always told us who our enemy were. Okay, and they always built up defense mechanisms around us. Boy, you got to be twice as good to make it in this world. You know, don't you ever listen to what they tell you now. You know, boy, you know, and they always gave us the truth, but we, it got in here, and somehow it was buried once we go through that public education system. But then when we come out of there, it begins to come back. And this is where we ended up on campus. This is why the Vietnamese would drop flyers. Why are you black GIs here fighting us when your people are back home fighting the same enemy for freedom? What? Pass that joint, man. Man,
Yeah.
shit there. I mean, that's the way it went down.
Yeah, I got a tagline. If I could share my tagline. Black pride, indigenous ancestry. I am black, period. From everything that I know, that I've grown up with, I'm black. My ancestry is indigenous. And there you can have many different ancestries and be considered a black person here in the United States. Because I guarantee you 3 things. You turn on Fox, they calling me black, right? And that I don't need to know nothing else.
When them Billy Clubs go flying, they ain't asking you, are you native? Are you mixed?
You black.
Let me just throw something
What
at
tribe you from? No, it's a Billy Club.
Let me tell you something that popped up into my head as we were talking here. You know, when our folks now, you know, they talk about the Spanish American War, but they never talk about the Philippine American War, which started immediately after the defeat of Spain in Cuba. Our troops went to the Philippines. If you read their letters, they will talk about truth and how, you know, the local people were treated worse than we were treated back home, that kind of stuff. And then eventually a guy by the name of David Fagan with the 24th Infantry decided that, hey, I belong over here. And he joined Aguinaldo and the Philippine freedom fighters. And he became a captain in that military. Okay. Now, the American general, I think he put out a $10,000 reward for his head, you know, but many of our soldiers have seen that truth. And never forget him. David Fagan is his name, Fagan. Look him up sometime, okay? Because he personifies the tragedy of black soldiers fighting in the Master's Army. You know, look him up, David Fagan. And you will find others in the Indian campaigns as well, okay? But so David Fagan is the one.
I thought you was going to talk about the Seminole Wars. And so,
yeah,
Renee, Renee, there have been many things that have been reclassified, not just people, but events. My understanding of the Second Seminole War is that it was more like a slave insurrection or certainly a fight for freedom.
Oh, well, that's what all of them were, really. You know, and
that was us. That had us in there.
Oh, yes, most definitely. And many of the Seminoles were, well, you know, they said that a lot of them were escaped slaves that were that joined down there. But again, we have to remember how the people were misclassified and how all those dark-skinned people down there that, you know, in the 1800s that they're labeling Negroes, they were the indigenous people. So again, you know, so now we're talking about a whole bunch of mislabeled people that are down there that you know, that some of them were able to hold on to their native ancestry. Many of them weren't because they got caught up in the slave trade, you know.
The Stono Rebellion.
Oh boy.
You know, everybody knows the Stono Rebellion was a slave revolt, except the Stono was a Native American tribe. And so, wait a second. Are they black? Are they native? If the story is that this was a slave revolt, but when you actually look at the history, there was a Stono Native American tribe. Now we have to reevaluate the history that we have been told also, because again, this is Stono was a Native American tribe. And so, and also with the Yamasee, right? Yamasee is a perfect example because the Yamasee is a Native American tribe, but in the congressional testimony from the early 1900s, they testified that these are Native Americans, Africans.
Well,
and so
they called them Indian Negroes.
Indian Negroes, right? Okay, so they were Indian Negroes, but now the Geechee are African. Well, hold on, wait a second. they the same people. That's just two, 3 generations removed. And so how is the Gullah Geechee African in the year 2000, but in 1900s, they Negro Indians? And so these conversations like these have to, they lead to questions which they definitely want us to stay away from, which is, well, wait a second. If that is my lineage, if I could trace my lineage to that means that land is mine. And that becomes a problem, because now you have a Negro population that is able to legally, through international law, reestablish themselves via their indigenous ancestry. And now we are able to remove that colonial system from underneath us and start to develop our governing systems and reestablish our governing systems again without interference of we're migrants or we're immigrants, and so we don't have any rights except the rights that are given to us by the jurisdiction that is in charge of that land. But if you're indigenous, no, you have a right to reestablish those things. And if the Negro population is indigenous, even if 3 to 5% of our history as a full in our bloodline has direct ancestry from Africa, that would mean that 99%, 97% of us don't, which means 97% of us has the ability to organize as an indigenous community and start to self-educate, develop our own education system, actually learn what it means to develop a government and start instituting small communities where we would do those things and have the protection of international law and not United States law, which is something the Native Americans have a problem with too. Because if you're using your colonizers' law to establish, protect, and defend who you are, we ain't never going to win. But what will happen is each generation will get awarded funds and try to figure out the best way that they can contribute to the community. And we're going to always get caught in that cyclical cycle because we're not paying attention to who we are and what we have the capacity to do. We're only paying attention to what we are being told we have and what we can do with the money that they give us, which is what our teacher, Mr. Tiger, just shared with us.
And I'm beginning to be embarrassed here. Okay. Because
okay.
You are absolutely correct on your perspective on everything. This is what we would talk about back in the late 60s, early 70s. And, here my grandfather, I was born in Georgia. My grandfather was born in 1878, right? His mother, we call her the last slave. She was the Indian, right? He was born in South Carolina. And they went over into Georgia when he was a young teenager, right? And that's why some of my other family members were born there from that Davis clan. Now I got other clans too, okay? The Willises, the Bradleys, so on and so forth, that are heavily Native American as well, okay? But the Davis clan is the one that I'm talking about, or I should say the Winfrey Davis clan. And I don't know how Oprah Winfrey get tied up into that. But all of those things, the Stono Rebellion, all of these things were part of my knowledge growing up that has been dormant. And, just sitting here with you all, it's kind of like an awakening because, I remember the stories about all the rapes and things of that nature, that took place back in, even after the Civil War. Because remember, my great-grandmother was born a slave. So even after the Civil War, our people were being raped, whether we talk about South Carolina, Georgia, and then some of my people, because that's how I ended up living in Florida, because I left Florida in 1947 and they dropped us off in Georgia with my great grandparents and my grandparents.
Here's a question for you, Tiger.
Yeah.
Did growing up, in terms of indigenous peoples, did your grandparents, maybe it's not a question for you, maybe it's a question for Renee. Renee, well, actually, let me just put it out there. I'm sorry. What about people who do not have a history of slavery in their families? Doctor, here in Baltimore, there was a lady, Dr. Helena Hicks, and she was probably the first person I ever talked to. And she was an elder, God rest her soul, she got her wings, who said to me, Don, I don't have a history of slavery in my family. That was mind-blowing to me. And then it made me start asking the question, well, who else did not have a history of slavery? Did any of my ancestors not have a history of slavery? And so, to the young man's credit from Native Black Ancestry.com, it really raises the question, who can prove they are a descendant of a slave? How do you prove you weren't? How do you prove you were? And then one of the questions posed earlier was, have you ever seen a slave ship? And that's another story.
Well, you know, for those of us who was born down south, you know, every first Sunday in August, anybody that know me know where I'm going to be. I'm going to be at that church on that old plantation down there in Wilkes County, Georgia, or we will say Tignall, Georgia. And that's where all of my ancestors are buried mostly, okay, because we're tied to 4 different churches there. Because, you know, you had little beefs and then somebody go form another church and that kind of stuff, right? But the church that I joined in 1951 was Trinity Baptist Church there. And my great-grandmother, Grandma Flora, the great-grandmother, the Native American-looking lady that I showed y'all, we all share the same great-grandmother, right? And, you know, they all buried there, all of the people who were slaves. So every year I take my great-grandchildren, just as I did with my grandchildren, I take them down and they take pictures with the tombstones of their ancestors. And so my oldest granddaughter, she goes down to Georgia back when she graduated from high school in 1990. Pop, I thought you said Grandma Flora took care of you when you was a baby. I said, she did when I was young. Oh, no, Pop, look at that. She was a slave. She was born a slave. I said, baby, it was just yesterday. You know, I mean, dang. Because anybody that was 80 years old or above when I was a kid had been born slaves.
Mm-hmm.
I was living on that plantation down there in Georgia, the same land, the Great Oaks Plantation that my ancestors long before my grandparents lived. You know, because, you know, I have pictures of my family members who was born back as early as 1820s.
You want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
Below a certain latitude, African slavery was outlawed in South Carolina. So depending on where you from in South Carolina, they didn't ever bring Africans there. So if you were on a plantation, then
I was on a plantation in Georgia now, okay? My grandfather was born in South Carolina, and my grandmother or great-grandmother brought them all her children over into Georgia, I guess about maybe around 1890s or so, okay? Yeah. Because he was born in 1878, okay? So we call her the last slave, but she was born in South Carolina.
Yeah, I was just general fact, because a lot of people don't know that South Carolina outlawed African slavery. And
I didn't
so,
know.
so slaves from South Carolina were Native Americans.
Yeah, you are
Right.
enlightening me, right?
And-
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so my mother and I, my mother's from South Carolina. Hartsville, South Carolina, Darlington County, if you're familiar with that area.
That's why I get them speeding tickets all the time. Darlington County. Yeah. 4 years ago, you know, that's right next to Dillon County, right? And the sheriff's name in Darlington, because you know they lay out there on 95 waiting for you. His name was Matt Dillon.
Okay.
Matt Dillon. And my children still joking me about this because he saw my House of Delegate license plates, right? And so he said, look, you're up in Maryland making all them laws and then coming down here in South Carolina and breaking ours. But I ain't going to give you no ticket. I want you to make me a promise that you won't break my laws anymore. And so I said, you know, I will not break your laws. Oh, you raised your hand. So I had to raise my hand and repeat after him. And my kids are still joking me about that, but I said I didn't get that $150 ticket, reckless driving ticket, and my insurance didn't go up, right? Yeah, I raised my hand.
Yeah, they country still. They country. My mom and I went down there, and boy, the countryest thing I ever seen. She had a pig for a pet. And I was like, they still got pigs for pets down that job, bro.
She had some Billy goats.
Country, bro. But yeah, so that's our family. You know,
hell,
maybe,
we might even be family too. You know, you never know, right? You never know.
love to check it out. My apologies, Don. I'm sorry. We just, it's fun when you talk about the history, because for me it's fun to listen to us talk about the history, because the family stories are who we are and how we connect to each other. And those are things that we can all share with right now and say, well, we want our grandchildren to be able to have these stories too. And that's how you build nations, right? And that's how we rebuild this. And so thanks for letting me do that and letting us do that.
Renee, it is imperative to me to make sure that you get the floor. And so if you don't mind, I want to just give you the screen and you can say what you want, but you're outnumbered and I've been trying to defend you, but you got the floor, and then you take it as long as you.
Oh my goodness gracious. One thing, when you were just talking earlier about is there anybody that didn't have any slavery in their family? Well, I do have one part of my family that were not slaves. And they also built a church, and on that land there are Black people buried there, and there's also Indians that are buried there. Both of them are buried at this church. So there's a lot of history, amongst us that we need to make sure that we impart to these future generations so that they will know. But the thing is that we have to make sure that we are also imparting the correct information to them, and not just spitting out something that you just heard that sounds good and makes you feel good, but it may not be totally accurate. So that is one thing that I just that I encourage people to find out. There is so much information that we do not know. We are discovering things every single day of some new information. I have been doing this studying for quite a number of years, and I'm still learning things every single day. So that's what I I want to encourage people to 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 do that research. Do that is, and it is going to be hard work. Don't just do what makes you feel good. uh, go after the truth, and and hopefully we will arrive there as a people, and so that we can move this forward the way that the way that we know that it can.
I would just like to say thank you. Indigenous education was really developed to share the research that my mom had been putting in. At that time, it was over 10 years of research that my mother had put in. Now it's over 30 years. And so the organization was really established to offer a factual, non-biased perspective on and the omitted history of our communities as, you know, Black and Brown, African, whatever, you know, African American, however you identify yourself. The point is that there's a history here in the United States that we all need to be aware of. And by sharing that history, we can all learn how to be better people. And so that's the most important part for us. Definitely respect your elders, you know, and offer the best that you can to your community. Check us out, INDEDU.org. We're actually running a summer program right now called Pathways to Peace and Purpose, offering children stipends for their participation. We need your support. We have 3 times as many participants, youth participants that we're registered for. And so if you could help us with donations so that we can continue to offer them stipends, check out it. We definitely could use your help.
We're running out of money.
You know, but the children are worth it though, you know, so that's why we're doing our best to say, yo, let's keep giving these children opportunities. It's a nonviolence program too. And so, yeah, it feels good to be able to do this for the children.
Okay. Tiger, any final thoughts? You want to take us home?
No, well, you know, my only thought is I just want to thank both of them for the work that they do. And Donnie, please send me their address or contact information.
Oh, they got this big old website right here. What's your
okay, okay, I can say it. INDEDU.
Oh, he got a phone number too.
.org. Okay.
Put your phone number in the comments, Tab.
Well, you know, they're so righteous in terms of their presentation that it stirs up the truth, a truth that perhaps we have buried for a long time, or we've walked away from for whatever reason, because we've become professionals or we're getting paid to do this or that, and so we follow the script that's presented to us by Master. Okay, even though oftentimes we think we are not, because we have in our own heads a sense of who we are, but really, are we really that lost? And I think I'm going to end it right there, because you all have really opened me up, and I've gone back in time. Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
hold up, Tiger. Get your pen out and take this phone number down.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you, Renee. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a minute.
Not online. Not online.
Don't. Oh, man, why you tell me now?
Wait till after.
Yeah, I'll get it. Okay.
Okay.
Too late.
Well, look, I can go work with that. I can work with what I got on the
we can get it out of there.
INDEDU.org.
Yeah,
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, family. Much love and respect. Good evening, world.